All right. Howdy, bot builders. How's everyone going? Happy Tuesday today. Long weekend if some of you are joining from North America. Some of you are joining from all over the world, I know. I hope that I look refreshed and rejuvenated after this long weekend, which was most enjoyable. Looking forward to getting back into the bot building. I was about to say bodybuilding. Certainly not what we're doing here today. We are not bodybuilding here today, folks. We are certainly building bots today. So looking forward to getting back into the bot building. Welcome. Yes, David, thank you for that. That is exactly, those are the two most appropriate emojis. If you're watching the YouTube recording of this, the emojis in chat are a big flexing arm and the robot, of course. All right, let me lay out my plan for everyone today. Welcome, hello. If you're new to the streams, the way I typically run these is I've got a lesson of things planned for you and things that I want to show you. But really what we're here to do is build bots together. So if there are questions you have or things you want to know about Botpress, or if you're new to Botpress and you've got things on your mind that you can't really figure them out, I really prefer if those kind of dictate the direction of these streams. So if you've got questions, feel free to put them in chat. If there's something that I can answer, if there's something that, fit in with the scope of these streams, then I'm perfectly happy to totally derail what I had planned for today and move in that direction. When I say the scope of these streams, what I mean is on Thursdays, we also have streams that are aimed at developers. So if you have a lot of programming experience or if you have a developing background, you might also find Patrick's streams on Thursday morning Eastern Standard Time all useful as well. So some of the questions that you asked, some of the questions that all of you ask might be more relevant for those streams on Thursdays, but equally, I think I can give them a shot here, and if not, we'll move from there. So for today's stream, let me go ahead and start sharing my screen here. What I'd like to get going and what I'd like to show all of you is all of the features in Botpress that use generative AI. So the kind of overarching theme for today's lesson or today's stream is all of the things in Botpress that leverage generative AI in one way or another to make your life easier. If you are a veteran on these streams, then you've seen me say things like Botpress teaches you programming essentials, or Botpress teaches you things like programming logic without actually having to learn coding. That's kind of the spirit or the principle of what's going to be going on here today. So we'll be taking a lot of the features in Botpress, we'll be building a bot from start to finish, and we'll leverage as many of the AI features in Botpress as we can that are powered by AI. I know this is, perhaps, again, if you're a veteran in these streams, Robert loves a soapbox, but perhaps I'll take a minute off the top here to say, I know that AI, powered by AI, this phrase has become very buzzwordy. And of course, as human beings, we hate buzzwords, and perhaps rightfully so. I think that buzzwords maybe, they don't mean a lot, right? That's what a buzzword is. But the purpose of today's stream is to show you actually generative AI in the context of Botpress can help you do a whole lot than generate an image, for example. Not to say that image generation isn't exciting, but I think that use case has had its heyday. And so instead, what I want to show you is how, specifically in the context of building a chatbot on Botpress, how generative AI can make your life easier. I will say if you have experience building chatbots before, perhaps on another platform or by hand or manually, manually from scratch, in previous iterations of the world of chatbots, they can be very complex and lengthy processes, and generative AI takes away perhaps a lot of that complexity. I see a question in chat, so let me jump on this right away. I tried to build a chatbot in Botpress. I can help small business owners in Nigeria take orders and their products, cart and take payment, but I'm finding it difficult to do so. Is it even possible to achieve this on Botpress? Hey, Munira. Yeah, this is a great question. So there are a lot of different layers to what you said. And so a bot that can, give information on products and understand what you have in stock, what a business has in stock, is possible in Botpress. But things like managing payments and managing inventory and managing carts are best done through dedicated services, right? There are dedicated services that will do things like manage payments. So Stripe, for example, I think is a classic one. And then what Botpress does is it enables that customer service layer in the middle. So Botpress isn't an all-in-one platform that can do things like manage your stock inventory and ship out things and do all this and that. But what it can do is retrieve that information to streamline the way that customers receive information. So most services that do things like take payments or ship things or book appointments will expose what's called an API. And you can call that API and you can integrate Botpress with those services in a loop. If what I said makes no sense to you, that's totally fine. I will say things like APIs are on the developer side of the spectrum, and so they're certainly outside the scope of this stream. But what we're talking about here is integrating Botpress with a bunch of other things. If you have more questions about this, I would say ask them in chat or follow us up on our Discord server, or pop into Patrick's stream on Fridays, where I hear APIs might be a hot topic. Okay, hi everyone. I see you all saying hi in chat. Much appreciated. Let's get into the bot building for today. Oh, Fleeth, can we get into how to prompt a chatbot correctly and effectively during this session? Can you maybe like provide a bit more details for this question? What do you mean by prompt a chatbot correctly and effectively? What are you trying to do, and then what's not going right? What is pricing? If you're asking about Botpress pricing, you can just check botpress.com/pricing. The Botpress pricing is it's on a per message basis, so you can find more information there, but it's all relatively straightforward. Okay. I see several people are typing. I always love when I see several people are typing. It means that I've said something perhaps inflammatory. Who can say, truly? Let me take a sip of water while all of you are typing. Give it a personality. Yeah, okay, so we're skipping ahead to what was slated for the end of my lesson here, but if you click into your agents menu, so that's just this robot on the top here, and you hop over to the personality agent, you can give your bot a personality. So this is kind of a global, setting. I will show an example of the personality agent at the end of the stream, so you can stick around there or watch the recording later, but that's kind of the plan for today. I've been trying to build a bot to get a vehicle VIN number from a customer and then use that to gather part numbers from a website. Is that possible? Just Birds, yeah, this is possible. So you can definitely retrieve information from a customer and then use that information to gather from a website. The question here might just be, how is the information structured on that website? And is the AI model that powers Botpress able to read that information correctly? But I'll show maybe some examples throughout today's stream of gathering information from a user and then doing something based on that information. How can we display video in chat from a URL? I don't think it's possible to embed a video. I think that's what you're asking, is embedding a video URL. I don't think that we can do this. If there's someone on the Botpress team that can answer this more specifically, but I don't think it's possible to embed a video in chat from in the web chat window. Okay, I did say I was going to start bot building today, so let me just get going on building a bot, and then we'll get cracking. Okay, so my theme for today's bot is I want to say that let's say I own a construction company, and I want to gather some information about my customers, what they want, and I want to maybe help them with their renovation projects. So keep in mind, for today's stream, the entire stream, we're building a bot for a construction or renovation company, perhaps an individual contractor, but that's the theme for today. So just to note this theme and to make sure that we are all on the same page, I'll open the conversation with a welcome node, and I'll just say, what should I call this? Welcome to Botstruction. Like Botpress, if we were a construction company. Welcome to Botstruction. I'm here to help you out on your exciting project today. All right. How do we let the chatbot know when the date is? For a chatbot I'm making for a relative's church, a common prompt would be, when is the next mass? The chatbot would answer with the wrong date, and when I ask what the date is afterward, it says I don't know. Okay, actually, this is a very happy answer. But what I'll say is, one of the things I had planned for today was how to show your bot what the current date is, or how to ask your bot to get the current date. Actually, perhaps let's begin with this example, because this is a happy marriage of all of these questions. So let's say I own this construction company, and one of the most important things I need to do right off the bat is teach my bot, or have my bot know, what the current date is. Maybe this is to reflect to my user that I know what the date is. Maybe this is a piece of information we'll use later on. But either way, I need to know the date. So how do I do this? So the beginning of this step, the first thing I'll say, cakes in chat, is that your bot won't immediately know what the date is. And also, we're all aware of the concept of time zones, and so dates are different depending on where your user is chatting with the bot. So for example, in Australia, the date will be different than it is here because of course they're 12 hours ahead. So what we need is some kind of standard or did we lose me? I see your messages, Sabrina. Oh no, did I unplug my mic? You can all hear me except for Sabrina. Sabrina just doesn't like the sound of my voice. All right, well, I'll continue. And Sabrina, if you can't hear me, then you get a break from my dulcet tones at least. All right, so where were we? Back on the concept of the date. So what we need is our bot to adhere to some standard to understand which date am I grabbing. Am I grabbing my date or your date? And generally what you want from your user is I want to know what date it is for them right now. And so the way that we do this is I'm going to ask my bot, get the date on my current user, i.e. the person chatting with my bot, get the date on their machine. So I want to know what time and date it is for that user chatting with that bot. All right, so let's pop over here, and I'm going to use a card that is perhaps, if you're like me, a little scary because I'm not a programmer, but I'll use the execute code card for this example because, well, you'll see. So I'll pop it into my node, and the first thing I need to do right off the beginning of my conversation is to teach my bot what is the date. So in the execute code card, this might be a new card for some of you, or this might be something that we haven't actually used before, but the execute code card just allows you to execute custom code. That is something that I literally never do because I'm not a programmer. I don't have a developing background, but that's fine because Botpress like things like Copilot, Botpress can generate code using natural language. So instead of thinking this as like a coding task or something you're doing as a programming task, think of this as this is kind of a custom action that I can make my bot take, and I can achieve that using natural language. So the same kind of clear language you would give to like an employee to show them, to give them instructions on a specific task. So what do I want to happen here, cakes? What we want to happen is I want to get the current date and time, and I want to save it somewhere. So the first thing we need to do is create the variable that we're going to store that information in. Now, quick aside, if you're new to Botpress or we just need a little bit of a refresher, to store information in a bot, it needs to live somewhere. So think of this like I need a Tupperware to put my food in. And if I make a bunch of food and I don't have anywhere to store it, then that food is kind of useless to me, right? Unless I eat it all in one sitting, which I don't recommend based on at least the amount of food that I make. So we need a Tupperware or a container for that food or that information, which in Botpress are called variables. So I'll create a new variable and I'll call it date and I'll add it here. So what I want here is I want the date for my current bot or my current user to live in this variable. Let's return back to our execute code card. And remember, this is kind of just a custom task that I want to accomplish, and I want to use natural language here. So what I'm going to do is, what do I want to happen? I want to get the current date and time, or maybe just date, get the current date and save it to the variable date in a human readable string format. Okay, so let's go over this one more time. So I want my bot to get the current date, done. I want it to save that variable or save that date to the variable date, the one we just created. And this is the important bit. I want to save it in a human readable string format. So human readable meaning like I want to be able to read it in the same way that I would. And I want it to be a string format because that's the format of my variable, a string or text. So when I hit enter, we should see here a bunch of stuff comes up. And really, I don't need to pay any attention to this because Botpress did it for me. So the way that I like to use the execute code card is I like to just ignore it and let it do its magic, and I don't need to see it. Now, the beauty of Botpress is if you are a developer or you are a programmer, or let's say you are interested in learning more about programming, you can just click into it and learn more. So let me turn off the generation for a sec so we can take a look at our code and examine it. And really all that's happening here is we're using I believe this is JavaScript, but we're creating this here to get the current date, saving it in this format, and then setting it equal to the variable workflow.date. And so this is the Botpress part of things. So we're saying the variable date is equal to what we identified up here, and then we're done. That's it. So of course, now we've done this. So Cakes, this is how you would get the current date. So if your user, if you're querying like what is I want to know masses after this date, or appointments, or things after this date, first we need to know that. Okay, cool. So the next thing we would need to do is let's make sure that we have it right. So let's send our message, and remember we're saving that variable to a message. We're saving the date to a variable called workflow.date. So let's just say today is at workflow.date. And of course, since we are all good, responsible bot builders, we are going to test at most of the steps that we take. So let me just say hi. And we see here, today is September 5th, 2023 at 3:16 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time? Eastern Standard Time? In any case, we see that the date is correctly spit back at us, which is perfect. That's what we want. Okay, so Eastern Daylight Time. Thanks, JV. So Cakes, I believe the rest of your question was, how do I make my bot understand the question, when is the next mass? I'm not gonna answer the rest of that question for a couple of reasons, but primarily it's because the answer to that question is going to depend on how the information is stored in your knowledge base. So how the information is stored, like how would you answer that question, for example? Are you consulting a list, or is the information stored somewhere else? So this information is going to change based on how that is stored somewhere. I saw your question on help earlier, so I'm going to say, can you just go update it and maybe post a link to that website, or show me the knowledge base that you're pulling this information from or something? Because the way that you handle that will depend on how that information is stored. Yeah, so it's stored in a custom KB. That's great. I would just need to see like what the custom KB is like and how you formatted that information. But this, because the problem here was your bot wasn't able to get the current date. So in this way, you can get the current date and then answer based on that. Okay, let us move right along. I see some more questions. How to make a carousel be responsive. There should be LAML, L-A-M-L. There should be a field for allowing buttons on your carousel inputs. If we have time at the end of the video, I can pop into those. And Timo, can you please use a multiple choice question? I would want to ask a question and save multiple answers from users. What do you mean by save multiple answers? Because the multiple choice question is for two things. One, it's for showing your user multiple choices and then asking them to pick one, or it's for storing those in an array. So like, what toppings do you want on your pizza? I want green peppers, black olives, and cheese. So like that's an example. Okay. LAML, make sure that you are publishing your bot. If you're also running into problems on publish, just show us on help. But otherwise, the carousel buttons should work in general. Okay, so here's what happened here. We've gotten our current date. We've used natural language to generate the code that will get this, and we didn't have to spend any time on Stack Overflow or other JavaScript websites. I did that this morning, and I really didn't have to, just to verify that this was working. But the point here is natural language helped us do something faster. Okay, let's keep going. The next place that I want to show off some of the generative AI features in Botpress are AI-based transitions. So when I say transitions, what I mean are, how does your user, the person that is currently chatting with your user, how do they go from one node to the next node? And how does your bot know which way to send them? The easiest and standard and static way to do this are with transition cards called expressions. expressions allow you to define the conditions for this transition. So if my user does this, or if this happens, send them down this path. The default one, so you saw I just dragged this into my node. The default one is always, so it's just always going to work. So let me place a standard node here and see what happens next. Okay, Cakes, I'm gonna either can Jeremy or can someone else respond to Cakes in the thread in the help channel. For now, I'm just gonna continue with my bot here. How can I let my bot know what the date is? Yeah, like if you store the date to that variable, your bot will then know what the date is. But that's gonna, anyways. There we go. Yeah, as Jeremy says, there's he can help you out there. Okay, so now back to transitions. I want to make sure that my bot is transitioning to the right place at the right time. So some of the conditions for that transition, remember, we're building our construction company bot here. And so if you run a construction company, not that I ever have, but I suspect one of the most important factors is going to be, what is your client's budget? So do you have a giant budget for this project? Should we assign like 10 people here? Or do you have a smaller budget for this project and maybe 1 or 2 contractors? It's going to be okay. So of course, to understand that, the first thing we can do is ask our user for a number. And in this case, the number is the budget. So I'll just say something like, what is your budget for this project in Canadian dollars? I'm located in Canada, everybody. So that's why I'm asking for the number in Canadian dollars here. Now, of course, we need the container, or we need the Tupperware, or we need the place to store this information, because remember, without it, it's useless. So I'm going to store it in a simple variable called budget. And there we go. So now what's going to happen is I want my user to answer with a number. And so that's what's going to happen here. And depending on what number they answer, I want to get sent down the correct path. Now, how would we do this without writing code? Code would allow you to do a really simple if-then statement. But again, I said really simple, but I don't know how to do that. I don't have a programming background. I'm not a developer. And so even something as simple as if-then statements are out of my area of expertise. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the expression card again, and I'm going to label the conditions for my transition. I'm going to say, this is what I want to happen in this way. So what if I just say something like, if the budget is under 10,000. And so if I type in, if the budget is under 10,000, I hit enter, what happens next? We get the condition for this transition generated for us automatically. What happens for users where the budget is over 10,000? I want to do another transition for them. Super simple, we'll do the exact same thing. So I'll take my expression card, I'll pop it here, and I'll say, if the budget is over 10,000. So now I've got 2 cases. One for the budget being under 10,000, one for the budget being over 10,000. And I want to customize, or I want to develop or design different conversational experiences for both of these users, right? One for the smaller budget and one for the high budget. So here I'll just place a standard node, and I'll call this node smaller budget. Of course, $10,000 is still a hefty amount of budget, as I believe we can all attest. And this one I'll call higher budget as well. And what are we going to do next? We are going to, I'm waiting for someone to answer, but of course I can't hear any of you, but we are going to test, right? We always have to test our bot to make sure that we are ending up in the right place. Remus, thank you. Text, yes, close enough. All right, just to make sure that we ended up in the right place, I'll send a simple card. So I'll say smaller, and I'll call this one higher so that when we're troubleshooting, we can make sure that we ended up in the right place. So I say hi. I get the date because that's still there. And what is my budget for this project? Let's say it's 20,000. So we should end up in the higher one, which we do. Great. So again, really simple. We customized the expression card using natural language to make sure that users get sent or segmented down the correct path based on what their budget is. Bum, bum, bum. Okay. So the next thing I want to do now is let me massage or let me design or let me customize the experience for the higher budget clients for a while, because I've got to do one at a time. And so maybe these are higher value for me. So I'm going to go here. So as a business owner, one of the things I want to know is like, if your budget is under 10,000, maybe I can't justify the hours that it would take to dedicate to a file like this one if it's really just a tiny renovation and we deal with larger customers, right? Larger construction projects. So the only ones that for me are worth following up on or working with are these higher budget clients. So I want a spreadsheet of everybody that's ever interacted with my business. I want to understand every single person, to understand what is the ratio of lower value or lower budget clients to higher budget clients, but I only want to talk to the higher budget ones. Also, I hate Microsoft Excel, I hate Google Sheets, and I want like the simplest way to do this. I don't want to write any code, I hate formulas, and I don't want to use like 4 different tools. What do I do? Well, you're in luck. I know I engineered this whole thing, but let me show you how to do this. So the first thing we'll do is we'll create a table in our Botpress studio. Thanks, Jeremy. Tables, exactly. And what I want to happen is I want this to be a table that I can look through using natural language without having to write down any complex formulas. So I want the information I need at a glance, but I don't want to write any complex formulas. I certainly don't want to write any code. And I just want to get like a couple of phone numbers or emails based on what their budget is. Okay, let me sip of water, catch up on chat, and then we'll continue this bot building. Oh, Fleeth, this is a great question. Okay, let's put a pin. Let's put a pin in the table thing for now, because I believe this is a really good question. Okay, so what we want to happen here, I'll read out the question for if anybody's watching the recording later. Can you add a loop if the user fails to answer the budget question? Instead of answering a number, they write a question and fail the task. How to set up that loop? Great question. Really lovely. We're going to get into some advanced configuration. If you're like a beginner user, I would strongly urge you not to be scared of the advanced configuration button. I know as a beginner of like a lot of software products myself, advanced configuration or advanced settings can seem a bit scary, but I promise in Botpress, they're not that bad. So the way we handle this loop is we're going to add an advanced configuration, hop into the advanced menu, and add a transition to handle failure. So what's happening here, Fleeth, is if we fail to capture the variable budget, if we fail to receive this number, so let's say our user puts in pepperoni, and then that's obviously not a number, so it's not going to work. We want to be able to handle that failure. What would happen by default is we would send them to the error path. But let's say you maybe want to massage that a bit more. You want to be a bit more delicate with that user. So you can add a separate transition to handle failure. So let me pop that over here. And so now what's going to happen is if it doesn't work, they're going to get sent down this node. And then we can say something like, oops, I'm going to need a number, please. And then we can continue adding things to this node, which I will call failure. And let's test this out. Let's try this out to make sure that it's actually working properly. So I'll say hi. And what is my budget for this project? I'll say soup. And then I get asked this again. Why? Because by default, your bot will retry to answer the same question or get the same answer, ask the same question 2 times before calling it a failure. So you can think of this like a human being saying like, oh, I didn't catch that, sorry, over and over again. So that happens twice, and then we'll get sent down the failure node. So I'll do that again. I'll say soup. This is the second retry, and I'll say that one more time. And so you'll see capture variable failed budget. That's because my user never entered a number. They were just really adamant about wanting soup. And like as much as I can relate, I really need a number here. So Fleeth, I hope this answers your question. This is how you can add a loop to handle that failure. And then you can just customize this failure node however you want. So if you want to send the user back here, you can do that. If you want to send the user to a different workflow, you can do that as well. But that's how you handle failure on a capture card. It's a really handy little feature. which I do love. Yeah, Fleeth, I hope that solves the problems that you're having. Also, I will say this is like kind of a hidden feature. It's like a secret superpower in any case. RTG had a great question. What is the advantage to this method as opposed to using a single input or raw input card with the same two choices? Can you, I may have zoomed past this, but what specifically do you mean? And which example are you talking about? Because we've talked about a lot of different things. RTG, if you're still here while you're typing that up, let's pop back to our table example. So remember, the idea with this table was we wanted something, i.e. a database, that I could query with natural language. So I want to know of all the people who have chatted with my bot, how many of them or which of them have budgets greater than 10,000. I'll call this table leads, just because these are my current leads. And if I'm a business owner, I might ask myself at this stage, what information do I want from my user? What is like the bare minimum that I could ask for in order to receive something of value? In this case, I'm gonna say like email and budget. But if you want phone number, if that's how you do your business, that works as well. But let's just ask our user for their email here. So really simply, I'll just say to start off, what's your email? And I'll store that in a variable called email. Remember, the habit should be that we always need our container or our Tupperware for that food. So email, budget. So now I'm collecting this information from my user, but I need to put it somewhere. If you've watched either last week's stream or the week before, and then also a couple of the recent videos I've put out on YouTube, I go into this process in a lot more depth, and I show you step by step how these tables work. But really quickly, speed record here, I'm going to say the first thing I want to put in is the user's budget. And of course, I need a field for their email as well. Now, let me over here show you, I need my bot to write this line item down in my spreadsheet. I need this bot to put this email or put this information somewhere. How does it know to do that? Really simply using the insert record card. So I'll pop it here, I'll select my leads table, and then I'm prompted with my two columns that I just created. So the budget is going to be equal to the workflow budget variable, and the email will be equal to the variable workflow.email. So whatever my user inputs in terms of either of these variables. Now, what do I do next? I, of course, have to test it out. So we'll retry this completely. I'll say hi. I'll put in my email, which is soup@soup.com. And my budget is going to be, let's say, 15,000 CAD, because I'm a high spender. And of course, that information should now be in my leads table. So let me see over here. It is great. Let me test this one more time, just so we can verify that our table is going to be working. And I'll say, I'll create another fake profile. And I'll say my budget for this project is only 5,000, i.e. smaller. Okay, so now I have this example table with two entries. And you can imagine if you're a business owner, let's say you've got tons of traffic on your website, and this will become, thousands of rows long, and there's a ton of information here. It's really hard to filter through manually. We don't love to do that. We can use natural language, or the theme of today is we can use generative AI, or we can use AI to filter these or create these conditions for us, to filter for us without having to write any formulas or code. So over here on the right-hand side of the table menu, we can create a selector. So I'll create my first data selector, and let's see what happens here. So let's say I want budgets over 10,000, right? Because that's kind of my water line, or that's my point that I want. So let's say budgets over 10,000, and let's see what happens when I hit enter. So the stew record goes away, and now I've just got this one where the budget is equal to 15,000, i.e. over 10,000. So let me just make sure that got saved. Budgets. There we go. And let's do that one more time, but let's say budgets under 10,000, because I just want to know that information as well. I want to have that readily available to me. So we got budgets over 10K and budgets under 10K. So remember, at this point, we haven't actually written any code. We haven't done any formulas. We really haven't done too much work to manipulate this table other than write down kind of what you might typically say to like an intern. Like, get me all of the information on this table. Get me all of the records that have budgets under 5,000, or get me all of the records for this table that have budgets over 10,000. Those are the kinds of tasks, the kinds of repetitive tasks that tables and Botpress in general make a lot easier. So let's say I want to see at a glance the ones with budgets over 10K. I can just hit this play icon and execute the selector, which just means make it happen, or let me see all of this information. So budgets under 10,000, budgets over 10,000, and right away at a glance, you can quickly filter this information. And remember that the beauty of all of this, as somebody who works in a field like this, is like, I didn't have to write any code. I didn't have to do any programming at all. And you can understand what's happening without having to write complex formulas. So this is what I love to see. Lamel, you ask a beautiful question. The question here in chat is, can the table be exported? Yes, of course. So you can export as a CSV here. You can see the button is right here. You can also import tables from a CSV format. And so CSV is supported in stuff like Excel and Google Sheets. So if those are things you do love, you can also use those tables there as well. So let's say you've got like maybe somebody who doesn't want to use Botpress, but you want to export that information to them. You can totally store that information as a CSV, pop it over to them, visualize it further. Maybe you want to draw a nice graph and go from there. Okay, so now we've shown how you can use natural language to do things. And so let's take a step back here for a sec. And let's remind ourselves what the purpose of today's stream was. The purpose of today's stream was to show you how the generative AI features in Botpress make your life easier. So the point I want to hammer home here is Botpress is bot building software. It is a service or a software that you can use to enable things like customer service, better customer interaction, better support for your business, whether it's internal or external. And generative AI is, I don't want to say magic wand because that sounds a bit, it's not right, but it's a tool that you can use to streamline that work. So in the same way that you use a car instead of walking to get from point A to point B, you can use generative AI to make your life easier for tasks that you're already doing. And I think this is the best way in my mind that I've understood, or to formulate or to wrap my head around what's the point of using all these features anyways. So when we say things like Botpress is a platform that's driven by AI, I think for a lot of places that can read like a buzzword or that can sound like a buzzword. But for Botpress, it gives you superpowers. Again, another buzzword, but it allows you to do your work like a lot faster than it would have been otherwise. Like, for example, just for fun, this morning, the example I showed you earlier about collecting the date and time from a user, I had to teach myself how to do that. It took me like an hour and a half because I don't have a development background. It's not something I know how to do, but I certainly know how to write down in a field, get the current date and time. So I think those are really nice things that Botpress can make you do faster and easier, and that's kind of the whole point. Lamel, you ask another great question. Do you secretly work for Botpress? These are really good questions. Can a table be used to recognize a user? Yeah, so the way that you would do this is if you had, let's say, a spreadsheet or a database as part of your business, and each user had a unique record ID. So let's say they had like a unique username or a unique number ID. Your bot would be able to cross-reference against that database, search for that unique ID, and then recognize your user that way. Maybe pull information like account status, or maybe like what country they live in, or whatever information you have saved there. I'm going to say that the retrieving that kind of information is outside the scope of today's stream, but that's certainly possible as well. RTG, would this work with your previous standard of soup, stew, and burrito rather than numbers? In other words, how would you use the execute code example to go down different paths based on words rather than numbers and arithmetic? Oh yeah, that's a great question. So if in my single choice, so maybe the first part of answering your question is the conditions for this failure are that the variable wasn't properly collected. The single choice would work as well. So if I was putting in numbers instead of text and not ordering the correct choices, then the failure would still handle that transition. It would still trigger the failure. How would I use the execute code example to go down different paths? I'm going to say I don't really use execute code, so like I don't really know the answer to this question. It's also a great question. So if somebody from Botpress in chat does know the answer, otherwise feel free to reach out on the general chat, which I will be hanging out in later. Okay. I see, Guillermo. Earlier, RTG wanted to know, when is it better to use a number raw input rather than single choice? Yeah, that might begin to answer the question. Thank you, Guillermo, for that. Choices are good for guiding the user when they don't know what are the possible answers. Yeah, of course. Great. Beautiful. Thank you. All right. So this is a relatively simple bot here. But in the last 20 minutes of today's stream, what I'd like to show you is... so Lemel, I'm not going to give an example of a flow recognizing a user at the moment, just because that's outside the scope of the stream that I run. But it's a great question, and so I've noted this down as perhaps something I'm going to show on like a YouTube video later. So subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Okay, so I want to now wrap up the stream by showing you maybe the last thing you can do using AI that will make your you can add this as kind of like an insurance policy to make sure that your user is always having a satisfactory conversation. So they always want to get some kind of value out of talking to a bot. So again, Robert's going to soapbox for a second, but if you are as old as I am, and I will not tell you how old that is, but it is it's certainly pretty old, you've been interacting with chatbots online for a while, and for a very long time in the history of the world, they haven't been, or they weren't very effective. They were kind of annoying, particularly if they weren't built very well. So if they were kind of just thrown up on someone's website, but they didn't put a lot of effort into building them, or they didn't have the kind of resources to sink into building a good bot, the chatting experience with them can leave you with much to be desired, let's say. So now what I'm going to show you is to make sure that in general that doesn't happen. Let's say my current user had a question about construction. Maybe they wanted to inquire with my services, so my construction company, but also they had a very specific question. They wanted to know, can marble tiles be used in a kitchen? I don't know. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. The construction company that I run certainly knows, but if I'm using my chatbot, I want to make sure that maybe I'm just using it for leads. So there are two ways to go about this. The first is, I'm sure this is something that most of you are familiar with. It's kind of a core Botpress feature that uses AI, but we can query a knowledge base for this. So let's say that we had some knowledge, but in my knowledge base, I don't have information about construction projects. I have information about my pricing and my scheduling and my appointments and the services that I offer, but I don't have information that will answer my user's question, but I still want them to leave my website feeling like they gained something of value out of this. So just to demonstrate this example, I'll use a really simple text KB with one fact, and the fact is that the fish is green. I'll call it fish. I'll call my knowledge base fish. And the reason I'm doing it this way is to show you that when something isn't able to be answered from a knowledge base, we can still do something of value for our users. So here, let me ask my user a question, and I'll just say something like, what do you want to know? So on this node, I need to enable knowledge answering to make sure that the question actually gets asked. And I'll let them ask a question of my knowledge base and see what happens. So let's test this out. I'll provide my email. So I'll say the@the.com. My budget for this project is 99,999 Canadian. And of course, now I get prompted for my question. So what if I say, what color is the fish? The fish is green. Of course, the answer is found in my knowledge base. That's the only thing that it could answer. It couldn't possibly answer anything else. But what do we do if my user was asking me questions that I don't have the answer to? There are ways that we can fix this. In the old world of building chatbots, typically what you would do is you would say something like, sorry, I can't answer that. Please reach out to our support team at this email. That's still super valid, but the point of deploying a chatbot is you want to save those customer service hours for really complex cases that can't be solved elsewhere. So Lamel, there are two different ways that we could do this. We could do the web search version, so searching the web, but we're in the world of AI now. It's 2023. I'm older than I've ever been before, and I'm as young as I'm ever going to be. And so what I want to do is show you a fun way that leverages AI to do this. Now, you've all played with ChatGPT, I'm sure. If you haven't, give me the rock that you live under because I want to move in. But so the point here is I want to be able to access the knowledge that ChatGPT has, or perhaps other models at some point in the future. Once again, I've got something in my eye. But so I want to be able to access these models that have like the sum of human knowledge available on the internet to streamline that search process. So here's what we do. The first thing is, you'll remember at the beginning of this stream, what we talked about was sending our user down the correct path if the correct thing happens. So I'm going to place a transition. Let me pop it over here. And what I want to happen is if my bot wasn't able to answer based on the information in my knowledge base, go down this path, do this next thing. So I'm going to pop over to, I've shouted this out before, I'm going to shout it out again, my quick reference panel, which has just a collection of things in Botpress that you might find useful. And I'm going to save the last one or the third to last one to my clipboard. What this formula shows you is just whether or not your bot was able to answer this question from a knowledge base. So I'm going to say if you weren't able to answer from a knowledge base, i.e. ! Paste the variable, go down this path. So we pop over here. So let's review. User asks a question, bot can't answer from the knowledge base, so let me change this label. Gets sent down this path. Okay, so far so good. Now, here's where the magic happens. We're going to show you here the AI task. What happens is I have an LLM at my fingertips. So Botpress just streamlines your access to ChatGPT. And as Guilherme says, perhaps other LLMs, wink, wink, at some point in the near future. So now Botpress streamlines the access to ChatGPT without having to leave the chat window at all. So what I'm going to say here, and maybe this is a kind of a crash course in the AI task, but I'll say answer the user input and store the answer in a variable called answer. Super simple. So store result in variable answer. I'll create that. Remember, we always need our Tupperware to put our food into, and let me save it here. And so now this is the part that we're going to have to do a little work. So the AI task input, this is what's going to be sent to ChatGPT for answering. So imagine we're just collapsing the barrier between our chatbot and ChatGPT or querying these models that exist out there. What I want to happen next is I want to answer my user's question, but I don't want to ask them for it again because that's not a great conversational experience. So let's go back to the place where we're asking them a question and make sure that we save this in a container. The reason I haven't done this yet is because I want to show you if we don't save this answer or the question that our user asks in some kind of container, we have no way to access it later. So here, what do I want to know? What container is this stored in? How do I know what did my user ask? So if I'm asking my user a question, I got to save this to a variable called, let's just say, question. So when my user asks the answer, when they answer the question, what do you want to know? You could use the variable workflow.question. Narakeru, you are 100% right. Let me pop open quick reference. You could use event.preview to save the user's last message. And so both of these work. And so event.preview is going to be the thing that references the last thing your user sent. And then if you wanted to maybe pop some questions in the middle here, where your user was going to be having a back and forth with your bot, you could also just save the variable to a question. Save the question to a variable really just depends on how you're designing your conversation. So now let me tell my AI task, my nice little employee, user input is equal to workflow.question. Okay, so now once again, let's review. Our bot asks our user for a question. We can't answer because our knowledge base only contains information about that one fish. And then so if our bot can't answer the question from a knowledge base, we'll pop over to this AI task and we'll sort it out here. Now, let's just make sure that our user gets this answer by sending them here at workflow.answer, because remember, that's the variable that we're storing the result of our AI task in. And now let's test everything out to make sure that we created this properly. So I'll say hi. I'm going to create another fake email. I'm going to provide a budget of $100 because this person, we're working on a small budget. We end up in the smaller workflow, which isn't connected to the rest of it. Okay, so we must be a high roller for this one. All right, we try one more time. Sandwich is going to be a baller for sure. How long does the live stream go? We go till 4 p.m. Eastern, so we've got 10 more minutes. What do I want to know? I want to know, can I use marble tiles in a kitchen? That's the question that I have, the burning question that's on my mind. All right, let's review what happened here. So I asked my bot, can I use marble tiles in a kitchen? That's over here. And then it couldn't answer from my knowledge base. So we see in the emulator, no valid answer was found. This is because my knowledge base, of course, only contains that one sentence about a fish. So we pop this transition over here and we use the AI task to query ChatGPT for us. So what happens here, we see the AI task ran the answer and we end up over here. I see a great question in chat though that I simply cannot resist. Web search and AI tasks seem to effectively achieve the same objective. Is one more effective than the other? When would you recommend using one over the other? Yeah, this is an excellent question. I really love this question. So the theory here is that the AI task is querying ChatGPT, which is going to search the internet, clean up that result, and spit it back to us, which is really what the web search does as well. The beauty of the AI task is that the instructions here, so task instructions, are really wide. So I'm using like the simplest possible version of this example here, but as David says, the AI task is so flexible. So I'm barely scratching the surface with the task instructions here of what the AI task can do. And so this is like a really, kind of the sky's the limit in the instructions that you can give it here. So as long as you provide it with clear, detailed instructions, then I would recommend using the AI task in a lot of the cases here, because it's really buildable. So in the same way that like people talk about makeup being buildable, you can add layers on it. You can add layers on top of this AI task instruction as well. So if you wanted it to do additional things or understand additional things based on what the instructions we have in front of us are, that's when I would recommend using the AI task. Web search is great too. It's also, it's going to provide slightly similar answers or kind of the same answer, but it won't have that added flexibility. So some people will prefer one over the other. Web search is really great when all you want it to do is search the web and you don't want it to do anything else and you don't want that added flexibility. Once again, Botpress, I love it because the flexibility is there if you want it, but you don't need it if you don't want it and you're also scared of it, like me. Okay. All right. At the beginning of this stream, one of the questions we had in chat was about enabling personalities. So teaching my bot how to have a personality. I'm going to enable it now, and I'll run another test on my bot using the personality agent to show you how it works and what it does. So I'm going to pop over to my agents menu. I'm going to enable my personality agent. And for those of us in chat, give me some personality traits, and then we'll build it together. And this is kind of like a first come, first serve thing. So give me some of these personality traits. And together we will build a person. Ooh, jovial. Okay, hell yeah. You are a jovial customer service agent. You are very charismatic. And you always include emojis in your messages. Let's say at the end of, oh, we're really pushing this to the limit here. Let's see what we can do. Anyone else got any other things they want this person to be like? Charismatic, jovial. What kind of language do they use? Okay. You're not a customer service agent. You are a jovial cowboy. You like to make jokes and you speak like Sean Connery. All right, this is really good. I like all of this. I'm gonna hit save here. And so now our personality agent or our bot is going to, in theory, respond like this all the time. Let's see what the heck happens. So I'm gonna prompt my bot. I'll say hi. And there we go. So you see here, we're getting those emojis. We're getting the cowboy and the howdy partner. Could you kindly share your email with me? And so let's try that one more time. I'll say hi. And what I want to show you is you'll see that there's kind of a loading indicator here. That won't show up on web chat, so that won't show up when your bot is deployed, but it shows up here to show you that the personality agent is working. So your bot is taking all of the messages that it would have sent normally, and it's translating them into that very intense personality that we crowdsourced together earlier. And so if I share my email, for example, I supply a budget. How much moolah are you willing to spend on this project? You'll see that it's adjusting all of the messages that you send there based on the personality that you input. So for the person in chat that was asking about the personality agent, you can do that as well. Timo, would you use the personality agent to shorten answers from a KB that are too long, or is there a better way? Ooh, Timo, this is a wonderful question. I'm going to say I've got 4 minutes left on the stream, so I can't answer, but I created a video about this. And it's on our YouTube channel. So what you can do is you wouldn't use the personality agent, but you can use the AI task. So earlier RTG500 was asking about when would you use the AI task over something else. Let's say you wanted your user to be able to query the web, so use the web search, but we don't want answers longer than 2 sentences. That's it. That's all we want, because our users have, in the age of TikTok, very short attention spans. I have a video on the Botpress YouTube channel showing you how you can use the AI task to take the raw answer from your knowledge base query and then shorten it into just 2 sentences, or you can expand it into 12 sentences if that's what you want. And so that's an example of the kind of flexibility that you can include. Yeah, David just linked you that video in chat, but Timo, that one will answer your question. If you're watching the YouTube recording of this, the video is called Integrate AI Task and Knowledge Base. X.E, could you show how to connect API to Calendly, please? I'm going to say APIs, application programming interfaces, are outside the scope of my stream on Tuesdays, but they're right at home at Patrick's developer streams on Thursday mornings Eastern Daylight Time. So I'm going to say that's where that would live there. Okay. I'm going to say we've got 3 minutes left. Are there any other... Yeah, David, thank you for linking that event. Are there any rapid fire questions that y'all have? I hope that you enjoyed this whistle-stop tour through the generative AI features that exist in Botpress. RTG, basically the AI task is refining a web search, if I understand correctly. In this context, yes, exactly. It's refining, it's building upon the web search, it's expanding it, so refining it however you want. But it can also do more than that. So it's not just connected to web search. That's just for this example specifically. But you'll see there. Why does this hour go so fast? I don't know. We need a whole day of workshop. That would be a really intense day for me. But maybe I'll do it in my jammies, and that would be a lot more comfortable. 2-hour office hours. Oh boy, really putting the S in office hours, huh? And so anyways, as I was saying, the purpose of today's stream was to show you all the generative AI features that make your life easier in Botpress, but maybe don't have the kind of flashiness or sexiness that other viral tools have. But as somebody who uses these features myself every day, and I can save myself, minutes, hours of time, I do love to see it. All right. I hope you all enjoyed this stream for today. If you've got suggestions for next stream, or if you've got specific questions you'd like me to answer on next week's stream, please just tag me. And I always collect notes, and I'm always on Discord watching, and I'm always looking. So I hope you all have a wonderful Tuesday. Thank you again for joining me. I'll see you all at Patrick's stream for developers on Thursdays. Otherwise, I'll see you on Discord, and I'll see you all next Tuesday. Bye, everyone. Happy bot building.